Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're talking a little bit more about factoring. This time we're talking about factoring by grouping. This is with 4 terms. So if you see, I never know where my camera is, 4, there we go, 4 terms. If you see 4 chunks, then you're probably gonna wanna factor by grouping, and this is gonna be helpful for some other types of factoring as well. So here's what we do. We take a look at this guy, and we are going to try and factor this by grouping by breaking this out into chunks. This guy and this guy. Here's what we do. We look at this first chunk and we see, what do they have in common? Well, it looks like I can factor out a 3x squared. If I do that, I'm left with x. I need to multiply 3x squared times x to give me 3x to the third minus 5. Because if I do 3x squared times negative 5 will give me negative 15x squared. We're going to bring down this sign here. Now, 2x and negative 10, what do they have in common? They have a 2. If they have nothing in common, you can still factor out a 1, and I would encourage you to write down a 1. So that gives us x minus 5, because x times 2 times x will give me 2x, and 2 times 5 will give me negative 10. Okay, so here's where the key is. You have to ask yourself, are these two things exactly the same? Yes, they are. And if they are, then you are ready to factor. Here we go. It is this guy and this guy, so 3x squared plus 2 times x minus 5. You may be asking yourself, wait, why? How is that the case? It works like this. Because you're like, oh, x minus 5 is there twice. But if you take a look here, here's what I have. Let me scooch this on up. So let's say that I was going to take this binomial by this binomial and multiply it by distribution. What I would do is I would say 3x squared times all this garbage, so I did that, plus 2 times all that same garbage. And do you see how this right here looks like this that we broke it up into? So if I were to distribute this all the way through, I would end up with this thing right here. So that's the reason why that works. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Now, don't be fooled by this one. You always want to ask yourself, do they have something in common? And this one does. It does not have an x in common, but it definitely has a 5 for all of those. So if I take out a 5, I'm left with 3x to the third plus 4x squared minus 24x minus 32. Okay, so I always forget to, when I factor something out like this, I always forget to bring it down. So what I'm going to do is draw a little arrow to remind myself. Now, this thing right in here, we can factor by grouping. I'm going to use a different color so you can see. We've got this group right here and this group right here. Okay, so what we have from this first group, the only thing we can take out of there are 2 x's. So x squared, and when I do that, I'm left with 3x plus 4. Now I'm going to bring down this minus sign, and from here, the greatest common factor that they have, that they share, is 8. So I'm going to take out an 8, and that leaves me with 8 times 3x will give me 24x, and minus 4. 8 times 4 is 32. Now, the key I said is to look at these two things. Are these exactly the same? No, they are not. I have messed up, and I'm telling you, this is where every kid makes a mistake. Here's why. Negative 8 times negative 4 would be a positive 32, and we need a negative 32. So you watched me. I just brought down that sign. Don't bring down that sign. You got to make it a positive. Don't just bring it down. Negative 8 times positive 4 is negative 32. Now these guys match. So my tip to you is, if you look at those and they don't match, you probably made that mistake. Change your sign. All right, with that said, we have our first factor right here, which is x squared minus 8. And then we have our second one, which is 3x plus 4. Kablam, you have just factored this by grouping. Hopefully you found this helpful. We will see you next time.